Hi, I'm Rose, and this is the Sovereign Soul podcast. I help support awakening souls live beyond their ego and limitations so that they may know true freedom. Today's episode, I want to talk a bit more about what I spoke about in the last one, where I spoke about soul healing needs you to have autonomy over your soul in order to heal your soul. And this is like a aha moment for me, actually, because if I look back on my journey, that's exactly what happened. I started reclaiming my soul through personal responsibility. And I think personal responsibility was the breakthrough that I really, really needed to move from the head to the heart. And then later on, that year, I had a full-blown spiritual awakening, which then has progressed over the last 9 years. But that personal responsibility was massive for me, that understanding and that realization that I was putting myself through my own torture, so to speak, but totally obliviously. So in our heads, when we live in our heads, we suffer greatly. When we live from our hearts, we have the opportunity to live beyond our suffering. We have an opportunity to heal our soul. I'm not saying the soul is your heart, because the soul can carry humongous amounts of wounds, but the soul is also the bridge between our individualized human experiences and our connection to source. And I think this disconnection from our own soul, by giving it over to a god or a deity or a guru or whatever we do spiritually, by thinking that is saving our soul, then that's what you have to do. I think by doing that, that is where the first disconnect comes from, knowing our true divinity, knowing that we all come from one source. So as soon as we've disconnected from that, we don't really know what we are anymore. And therefore, we almost like chasing our tails or running on a hamster wheel. We never really get anywhere. We keep looking outside for something to come back to us, so to speak. And I think that the giving away of the soul is a massive contract that we not only have to pay the consequences of in this lifetime, but I believe there might even be thousands of lifetimes, if not more, that we have given our souls away, and that contract is still playing out, possibly even in thousands of years, depending on who you are and your circumstances. Now, owning your own soul, having autonomy over your own soul, gives you the ability to heal your soul. But you have to first call your soul back to yourself, or understand that you're living a life that you have chosen, as opposed to thinking or feeling that you are living a life that is just happening to you. So when you are attached to the idea that your life is destiny, and in a sense, I guess it is, because maybe it's your own destiny that you set out. But if you believe it's not in your hands, like it's not from your choices, that something else is deciding what's happening in your life, well, then you don't have autonomy and sovereignty over your own life, and most importantly, your own soul. So to get that back, you have to really challenge your belief systems. I was brought up Christian, so I definitely know what it feels like to have my soul enslaved in religion. And not only does it become enslaved within religion, but those contracts are also formed through our parents, the people that we've interacted with in different kinds of churches. It goes much bigger than just saying, hey, Jesus, you take my sin and I know I'm saved, which I think is a massive cop-out. I mean, that is totally bypassing all forms of personal responsibility, which actually was a massive wake-up call for me when I was about 21. I don't agree with that at all. It's just, to me, like, I cringe at the thought that that is a mainstream narrative or teaching, that literally you can do whatever you want, but if you just say, Jesus, save me, then all of a sudden everything's forgiven and you haven't taken any responsibility for the shit that you've done or tried to change it to be a better person from the inside. That to me is just gross, actually. But I deviate. So soul healing is the ability to change your relationship to your story. Because we all have a story. We've all been through enormous amounts of shit. And that shit can either make us suffer or it can help form us to help other people to get through their own suffering. I say to help people because what's the point if it's just for us? That doesn't make any sense to me in my mind, but of course it might make sense for you just to feel free in your own being. So that means that we all have a relationship with our past. And most of us are still dealing with our past as if we were children. So when our wounds are triggered, we will still behave the same way we did when we had that arrested development at the time of when that traumatic event happened or when that pattern set in. And this is, people talk about healing the inner child. I don't think that that's a fucking fluffy process at all of, holding the kid or anything. Well, you can. It's not that I'm saying I don't agree with it. Sometimes there is a time and a calling for that, but it's not a fluffy process. It's about acknowledging that you haven't actually grown up yet in the way in which you're dealing with things, which means your emotional intelligence is really low because you still have the emotional intelligence of a child when you are dealing with these emotional issues with the story of your past. And then the shadow work is very similar to inner child work. It means you're going to go back to visit those places that scare you, that you feel traumatized to, but somehow are massively attached to, and you're allowing your past to affect your present. So in your head, you're like, I want to feel better, I don't want to suffer, but your heart is not, it's not allowing you to actually release that past and to make friends with that past, to change your relationship. And I say your heart isn't allowing you because it's not connected. You're only in this headspace, which is the space of the ego. And this happens, I believe, when we don't have full autonomy over our souls in a full heart space. So I do get, annoyed is the right word. It just makes me feel sad. Let's put it that way. When there are people out there who are teaching you that, hey man, you can heal that in a day or a week or 3 days. That is not true. It's not true. We can have epiphanies and aha moments and deep breakthroughs in a moment, but you have to go and integrate that and do the work that it takes to actually heal yourself. And I'll tell you, when your heart breaks open, my God, does it open a lot of stuff that needs processing, that you need to make friends with that past. There's a lot of inner child healing that needs to take place. So that is a little bit about the healing process and also how to get to the point where you actually have the opportunity to heal your soul. I think I was going to tell you a story about when I was 21 and I read a book by Neil Donald Walsh, the Conversations with God series. And honestly, that book challenged my belief systems so much because, like I said, I was raised Christian. So there were times when I had to actually put the book down to let what I just read land in me. But I knew what I had read in that book was true because I knew it. It's like you just know it. You feel it at the core of your being. It's like a remembering. It's like, oh, that just hits a memory from somewhere that I didn't even know existed kind of vibes. So I've been someone who's always been willing to challenge my belief systems, always, from the time I was very young. So I'm quite like, let's say, belief systems are quite a pliable thing for me. I have obviously my own moral compass that I live by. That's my integrity, and it's who I am at my core, or what I am, or how I operate at my core. But ultimately, I couldn't have done the healing that I've done in my life had I not been willing to have those belief systems challenged to the degree that I have had them challenged. So having another aha moment, I'm 48 years old, living on this planet, and you have this massive aha moment where you go, oh my God, this is why people aren't healing. They're not healing because they don't own their soul. That to me is again, it would have been a massively challenging belief system however many years ago. Now I do need to let that land, because that is massive. To me, that is so massive. And I see it because I've seen it in myself. If you're not willing to do the work, if you're not willing to show up for yourself, if you still want to outsource out of fear, or you still think that you are completely incapable, you are never going to be able to move to that heart space. You can't crack your own heart open. A spiritual awakening cracks your fucking heart open. I've always been a pretty heart-y person, like I say, switched on, not awakened, until I had an actual spiritual awakening. But ultimately, to crack that heart open, to really crack the heart open, that's where the work actually sits. And you have to be willing to drive that process. That is so scary for people. I think sometimes it's hard for people to realize they have to feed themselves and put a roof over their head and, earn money in the first place, let alone take care of all these different other aspects. We as human beings, that I see, is we have 5 bodies. We have a mental body, an emotional body, a spiritual body, an energetic body, and a physical body. So I dumb it down to 5. We might have layers in that too, but I put it down to those 5. And we need to know all of those aspects of ourselves. We need to be willing to look at them and navigate them and know how to drive each one of those aspects. The soul fits into all of those aspects. And most importantly, it sits into the emotional body. So the soul will communicate through emotions, which is a fascinating process when it starts healing and you start learning and understanding this. But it also holds an entire blueprint of your whole existence. So it's a really interesting aspect of us. So learning to navigate those 5 different aspects of yourself is definitely integrated in learning how to get your soul back and how to heal your soul. So yeah, I know that I bang on about personal responsibility, but that's because it is in my mind, my understanding, my knowing, that is the root of healing. It's the foundation, and also it can be used to save this planet and the people on it, so that we don't have to feel like this is just a hopeless, helpless mess. I'm not sure if other people feel that. So I'm going to end this episode here. I'm sorry if I jumped around. And like I've said before, I'm not really sure how many listeners I'm going to get to all of this. It's just a deep need inside of my soul that I've got to get this information out there, leave a blueprint for someone who might need to hear this information. But in the next episode, I'm going to talk about something that I just actually came across the term now, and it's called existential dread. And I'm going to speak about that in the next episode. So if anyone has listened, I say thank you. And I hope that this has been helpful and useful. And if you ever have any questions or just want to just say hi, I am always open to that. I love connection. Okay, bye.